The gods instilled fear and respect. They symbolized the Sumerians' mistrust of nature. Each divinity in their pantheon played a role. Each one ruled over a city. Enlil, god of wind, ruled over air and earth in the city of Nippur. Enki, god of water and the world, was worshipped in Eridu. Udu, god of justice and truth, was worshipped in Lhasa. Inanna, known to the Babylonians as the fertility goddess Ishtar, was worshipped in Uruk. She inspired both love and war. To the Greeks, she was Aphrodite, and to the Romans, Venus. The smooth curves of this alabaster statue reflect the skill of the Sumerian artists. Their art and their religious devotion are highlighted by the statue's finish and their expressive faces. Prayer was part of daily life for the Sumerians. The upkeep and ceremonies of the temple required a large body of priests and other staff, and every day the faithful brought their offerings. The archives of the city of Uruk describe the daily meal of its four main gods as follows: 250 loaves of bread, 1,000 tarts, 50 sheep, 8 lambs, 2 oxen, and 1 calf. Celestial food that was offered to the gods and later fed the temple's 1,200 priests and staff. The scribes recorded the hopes of the Sumerians. In exchange for their devotion, their virtue, and their respect for the established order, the Sumerians hoped for eternal life in the next world. The never-ending struggle to tame nature made them conscious of the fragility of life and inspired their most beautiful myths. Gilgamesh, the fifth king of Uruk in the 3rd millennium BC, was a historical figure. He was the Sumerians' hero, and the stories of his adventures were famous throughout Mesopotamia. They sum up the history of the Sumerian civilization. Gilgamesh was a just king and a great builder, who also challenged the gods. He tamed savages, and he went to the distant forest of fragrant cedar to confront the fire-eating monster Humbaba. During their fight, Gilgamesh cut off the monster's head. He returned to Uruk in triumph. To punish him, the goddess Inanna sent the celestial bull to destroy the city. The bull dried up the meadows and rivers and opened deep crevices into which people fell to their deaths. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. The Sumerians' vision was prophetic. After ruling Mesopotamia for 3,000 years, their civilization, attacked from all sides, collapsed. The pomp of their cities was over, and so was their influence. The irrigation canals gradually dried up. The walls of the houses collapsed. The temples themselves collapsed under the combined assault of the sun, the rain, and the wind. The clay of the bricks turned to dust, leaving only a shapeless mass above the dunes, the last vestiges of a civilization's grandeur. How can we explain the complete disappearance of such a brilliant civilization, or the decadence of a people who left behind only ruins and the remains of looted temples? For almost a century, In the tablets archived in the temples, scribes patiently recorded the decline of crop yields. From 2350 BC, wheat production fell by 40%. Only barley production remained stable. How could a people who had developed such advanced techniques be powerless to keep their resources from dwindling? For decades, archaeologists pored over texts for an answer, but the answer lay in the field. The irrigation system made the Sumerians powerful, but it also contributed to their destruction. As 3,000 years of irrigation water evaporated, the salt, buried deep in the land, rose to the surface. In the end, a white cover of salt, hardened by the sun, made the soil sterile, and the wheat could no longer grow. The local people are still plagued by this problem today. In some areas, the earth is cracked. It resembles uncultivated desert. This is what the great fields around the cities looked like. Faced with climate change and desertification, Sumerian farmers could find no solution. The weakened Sumerian cities were unable to face the economic competition from the large cities to the north of Mesopotamia. Other civilizations, inspired by the Sumerian example, planted their standards on the conquered land. By 2004 BC, Sumer was finished. The Assyrians dominated Mesopotamia. The Epic of Babylon could now begin. Beneath the pitiless sun, the Sumerians' wealth returned to the dust. It's their story that the Bible tells. Like the builders of the Tower of Babel, the men and women of Sumer were scattered upon the face of all the earth. The water the Sumerians feared brought on their destruction. Having controlled the floods of the Tigris and the Euphrates, having drawn their life force from their waters, the Sumerians were swept away by history and disappeared. They left mankind the legacy of their wealth, traces of their creative genius, and a sense of the extraordinary fragility of civilizations. George Smith, a 19th century Londoner who studied Sumerian tablets in the British Museum, deciphered some legends about devastating floods.
The wickedness of men so displeased Enlil, the supreme god, that he decided to swallow man up in a huge flood. Enki, protector of men, pleaded with him, but in vain. So Enki decided to preserve a remnant. He asked Ziusudra to build an ark and to take animals in pairs on board with him. After 6 days and nights of storm, the world was submerged. On the 7th day, the storm abated. Ziusudra released a dove that, finding no resting place, returned to him. On the 8th day, he released a raven that never returned. Mankind was saved.